welcome to the show where we share the stories of the many who intersect with our healthcare system but are rarely heard from. My name is Kevin Poe, founder and editor of Kevin MD. Today in the show, we have Terry Malcolm. She's an obstetrician gynecologist and a physician coach. She wrote the Kevin MD article, How Improv Helps Physician Leaders. Terry, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Kevin. It's really nice to meet you, and it's really a pleasure to be here with you and your audience.
So we'll get into your article in a little bit, but first off, can you share your story and your journey to where you are today?
Sure. Yeah, as you mentioned, I am an OBGYN, and I am also a coach, a physician coach. So I started off in medicine first, knew as a very young girl, I can remember as early as 6, that I wanted to become a doctor and was really on that path to becoming a physician and sacrificed everything and put everything towards just that single-minded goal. Once I became a physician, I was always really interested in how decisions are made that impact the work that we do as doctors. And so I did transition into physician leadership because I really wanted to make a difference and have a greater impact that could go to scale. Because I loved the one-on-one connection with patients, but really felt like there was more that could be done to improve the quality of care that we were delivering. And in becoming a physician leader, I was introduced to physician coaching. And that is what really, really sparked my curiosity about how I can continue to take things to scale and how I can really help our physician community even more. So now that's where I spend the majority of my time, is really working directly with physicians, partnering together with them to help them discover the greater potential that exists within inside.
Tell me how your background and training as a physician prepared you to be a coach.
Quite honestly, it didn't prepare me at all. I mean, becoming a coach was a lot of unwiring, of some hardwiring that exists. It allowed me to move into a completely different sector, a completely different industry. I mean, I think that where there is some similarity is in our level of curiosity. I absolutely believe physicians were just innately curious about things. We're innately curious about how the body works together, about how the signs and the symptoms that patients present with, how that ultimately leads to a diagnosis. Where I think that there's a fork in the road is that as physicians, we're really taught to come up with an answer. We're really taught to, evaluate and then diagnose and then treat and then modify based upon the response to that treatment. So it's a very clear cycle that we follow. With coaching, there's a lot of curiosity, but it's not so much trying to find a solution. It's helping the client, it's helping the coachee for them to determine like what works best for them. So you're much more of a partner, you're much more of a guide, and it's just following that curiosity a little bit longer, just remaining in that place of, I don't know what the answer is. I'm holding back on the advice. I'm going to let the advice gremlin just stay quieter a little bit longer and just follow the curiosity to see where it might lead.
So let's transition into your Kevin MD article, How Improv Helps Physician Leaders. Now, for those who haven't read your article, can you walk my audience through it and share the story of why you decided to write it?
I really just wanted to share my experience of stepping up onto the improv stage and just how that was so outside of my comfort zone, so outside of my norm, primarily because there was an inner critic that was telling me I couldn't do it. And an inner critic that, I mean, even beyond just, you can't accomplish this or you can't do this, you're going to completely embarrass yourself. You are just going to make a total fool of yourself. You're going to fall on your face and everybody's going to laugh at you. And that inner critic was one that would often keep me from, following through on things that were really important to me, from sometimes just taking the plunge, and it was holding me back. And so I thought, well, improv is a way to help overcome those perfectionist tendencies that I can lean towards when something is really important to me. And my coach, I personally have an executive coach who's very familiar with improv, had practiced this before, and it said, I think that this would be a good idea for you. I resisted multiple times and said, I don't think so. I can't do this. And, and finally just over time, he just kind of massaged that fear muscle. And I said, I'm going to give it a shot and I'm going to try. And Improv really allowed me to be mindful, to be like in the moment, focused in the moment, not focused on what had happened, what transpired, criticizing myself for how things went or how if things went well or if they didn't go well, nor was I so focused on the future and how all of this is going to work out and, oh, this is so uncertain and I don't know where this might land. But it just really allowed me to be present in the moment, fully supported by other castmates and other improvisers on the stage with me who said, I'm here with you, and no matter where you land, we're all going to land together and we're going to pick one another up and we're going to work through this together.
Now, a lot of us see improv on television, but what are some of the specific exercises that you went through on stage that may have helped physician leaders who are practicing out there?
Yeah, and I'm glad that you've seen things on TV, because that was honestly one of the things that kind of made me paranoid. Was I thought, I don't want to be on whose line is it, whose line is it next, and I don't have any aspirations to be on Saturday Night Live, and those are really the professionals who are
Yeah.
on stage practicing improv. But just some of the simple exercises that that we would do is just even building a story together, just building a story together and doing it one word at a time, so that everybody had an opportunity to make a contribution and everybody's voice was heard and everybody really felt valued. And you couldn't be the whole storyteller. So you couldn't try to steer or guide or direct the story in any certain way, because your contribution was only one word. So, one of the lessons that I learned within improv was bring a brick, not a cathedral. So you don't have to have all the answers and you don't have to try to bring the whole cathedral for everybody to then be in awe of or to pick apart. Just make one single contribution. And if that's in one word, do it in such a way that it keeps the story going. So you are making your castmates look good, because that's, another one of the basic tenets is make your partners look good. So it's not about you trying to shine, but making sure that you're supporting your partners and lifting them up as well.
How can you specifically apply that to the exam room? So I have a general idea based on what you said, but I'd like to hear from you. So what are some specific improv techniques that a clinician can use in the exam room with a patient in front of him or her?
I think one of those questions is really about what can I notice here? So really being in tune to what the patient is telling you. And so when you ask a question, pausing and really listening to what the patient is saying. So listening beyond just the words that the patient is telling you, but paying attention to the emotions that are behind the words, paying attention to the non-verbal body language that the individual is sharing with you. And I think it's just the same with physician leaders as well too. Even when you're in a meeting, what are people telling you that they're not really vocalizing verbally? And so I focus on, what can I just notice here? What are some observations that I can make in this interaction between the two of us that I may not otherwise have noticed before? Another is definitely, what can I even accept here? Am I holding on to my own agenda? Am I holding on to my own thoughts of what the diagnosis absolutely is prior to really giving the patient an opportunity to share with me what they think is going on? I think it's, we're definitely, as I said before, we're hardwired, we're programmed to really come up with an answer. And patients are coming to us for our level of expertise. That's what they're looking for. They're not, wanting us to direct them, just go look at a website or go read a book and figure it out on your own. We have the knowledge base, we're well trained, we want to be able to share that expertise and that knowledge with others so that they can most certainly lead healthier lives. But sometimes I think that our desire to share the answer and our desire to share our knowledge can interfere with our ability to receive additional information that others might be trying to tell us.
Now, related to improv is acting, and I've had some recent articles connecting bedside manner with acting. Now, I just want to ask from your perspective, is there a connection between acting and doctoring? Do more physicians need to be actors in the exam room?
Gosh, great question. I don't think I had thought so much about what it's like to be an actor in the patient exam room or at the patient bedside. But I do think that one of the things that improv really helps you with is spontaneity and uncertainty. And I think, and most certainly in the patient physician relationship, there's going to be a lot of uncertainty, and you definitely have to be able to just go with the flow, and you have to be prepared for that unexpected moment when, maybe the treatment plan doesn't go according to the plan, and you're like, everything should be following because it makes sense for it to follow according to the plan, but it doesn't, or something is just said to you that is quite shocking and kind of just throws you out of your state of normalcy. So I think that there's certainly applications that we can use of just being more comfortable with that sense of spontaneity, and being mindful about what really triggers you and what does excite you and what energizes you in the same manner that you're interacting with your patients.
We're talking to Terry Malcolm. She's an obstetrician gynecologist and a physician coach. She wrote the Kevin MD article, How Improv Helps Physician Leaders. Now, if physicians are interested in taking that next step and going to formal improvisation classes, now what's your recommendation in terms of advising them for the next step?
Yeah. Well, I think one thing I would start with is just the yes and challenge. And, yes is really the bedrock of improv. And so the yes is really underscoring acceptance, it's honoring, it's acknowledgement, it's encouragement. It does not mean that you agree, but it just means that you really are acknowledging what the other person has said. So it's really about listening to the other. And the and is punctuating the building and the extending and the supporting and the connecting. And when you put those together, you are listening and then adding. And so I would encourage everybody just to start for a week and look at, where can I yes and you might be surprised at how much your initial response might be no. But if you could just start by responding with a yes, again, it doesn't mean that you agree, but a yes, to just be a little bit more curious and see where the conversation might go, so that you're acknowledging and honoring what the other person has said, and then you can build upon that and just kind of follow that and just give it a shot. You can try it with your spouse, you can try it with a colleague, you can try it with a patient, with your practice manager, even with your kids. Just see what it's like to instead instinctively respond with a no, respond with a yes and then, after that week, just kind of reflect a little bit on, what did I notice about my interactions with those where I yes anded? What did I accept? What was I more willing to accept? What did I need to let go of in those interactions? And, and then you can continue to apply that and keep trying it. And I mean, I think if I could be an example for anybody who can really get over the fear of the unknown and the fear of what might happen, it could potentially go wrong, and just letting that inner critic kind of be a little quieter, and instead looking at the inner critic as, how can you be a friend to me, and what kind of information are you actually trying to give to me so that I can move forward, then, try improv a little bit. Just try something that's out of your comfort zone. And, I'm happy to explore that along with you. So, this is what I love doing. I absolutely love helping physicians to, create a new change and break some old habits and find ways to approach things that they've never done before. And yes, and improv was one of those leaders who helped me do that.
And my final question, Terry, what is your take-home message you want to leave with the Kevin MD audience?
What I wish that I had known before I really embarked on my whole physician career was, failing forward is really about leveraging your mistakes. And so I think I really had understood, if I had understood what it meant to fail forward, and that it was okay to fail forward and really be encouraged to do that. I had just a very kind of monolithic, I think, view of what failing was. But improv really helped me to see that failing forward is about living with the downside, experimenting with new approaches, and it's investing in human resources. So there's nothing wrong with investing in yourself. It'll be the best investment you ever make.
And how can people reach you?
They can reach me at my website, which is Master MD Leaders. And I'm also on LinkedIn and I'm on Instagram, but it's all under Master MD Leaders or Master Physician Leaders. I'd love to connect. I'd love to get to know you and share your stories and your yes and challenge experience.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your insight, and thanks again for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin.